Welcome back! Today on Dialed In DIY, we're fixing game controllers. Yeah, there's no two ways about it. Video games can be a lot of fun. But especially if you're working on a console, that fun ends quick if the controller's not working quite right. I recently had a gaming PC take a dump on me, and I decided I was gonna break out the old PS3 and have some fun playing some games I haven't been on in a while. Unfortunately, the controllers weren't working the way they were supposed to. Even though I'm working on a PS3 DualShock 3 controller, the next dozen or so solutions that I'm going to walk through actually work on a lot of different kinds of controllers as well. So stick with me and see what works for you. These first few solutions are just about trying to get the controller back up and running. And most of them are solutions that you will find if you look up what the manufacturer of your controller suggests, including trying the different kinds of cables and making sure that you've got it plugged into the console if it's a console controller. The reason that's suggested is because you might be running it on a computer or completely wireless, but then charging it on a charging station. Plugging it back into the console helps to make a better and more secure connection and get the thing back up and running too. For me, that is really what made the difference after doing the hard reset. So at this point, what I know is I can fire up these controllers, and they're recognized by the console when they're plugged in. I still don't know about the battery or the ability for this to work wirelessly, so we need to test that out too. So the really good news is, out of the gate, it's working, the controller's responding, the game is playing, and I'm not hardwired, and my wireless function seems to be working pretty well. But I'm going to let it run for a while to see how the battery does. Unfortunately, the battery was about to be the least of my problems, because in a very short period of time, the controller went ahead and made 6 different button pushes that I never intended to make.
What the heck?
So at this point, we are going to be entering the surgical portion of the video. Yeah, that means our solutions coming up now require opening this thing up. I'm going to be focused on fixing that random button pushing, but there's some other opportunities for improvement and fixing other problems as well. One of the biggest cautions I'd like to make is to be very careful around the trigger buttons, especially the L2, R2 buttons. If you were to get them to separate, they're kind of a pain to put back. They can definitely be done, but it's a hassle that's easy to avoid. So just take your time. With everything exposed, we can look at the joystick sensors and everything else to see if there's any dust or anything interfering with the normal operation. Also, if your battery's fried, this is the place where you can easily swap out a new one for that old one just to get you back up and running. But since we're going deeper, we need to go ahead and remove the one screw that holds the motherboard down. You'll notice this little cello kind of looking tab or ribbon that has some connector points on it. That is our next culprit that we really want to look closely at. This is where our contact is made between the buttons and the motherboard. Over time, this little piece of black foam can be the culprit for the random button pushing, as well as pressing the buttons and having no response at all. The great news is, fixing it is actually pretty easy and really costs almost nothing to do if you just have some little foam mounting tape. That's this little double-sided stick tape that can be used for mounting a lot of things like pictures and stuff like that. Just happens to be, if you cut a piece to the exact same size as that little piece of black foam, you're gonna solve that little connection problem that you're having with the motherboard. As you can see, these are the best kinds of fixes. Not technical, not complicated. Just need to get that foam back up to about its original thickness, and your contact between the motherboard and that ribbon is back to solid. Although it wasn't the cause of any of the problems I was currently having, it's always a good idea to keep your electronics free of dirt and debris. So as long as I'm here, I'm taking a swab, a little rubbing alcohol, and gently wiping things down to make sure contacts are still good and there's not going to be dirt or any other lint or something that's going to get in the way of the electronics doing what they're supposed to do. Although at this point I'm feeling extremely eager to get this thing hooked back up and try gaming again, I still want to take my time, put the pieces back together carefully, make sure everything seems to fit, click, and operate the way it's supposed to. Then I can take it for a test run. I'll go ahead and take this opportunity to apologize for the less than adequate capture of gameplay. I've had access to an AverMedia device in the past that is currently not available, so my option for capture was not what I would prefer it to be. Well, there you have it. All the buttons are working great, it held up over extended gameplay, and despite having been in a box for over a year, the batteries are still holding a more than sufficient charge. I'm quite pleased. I really do hope that one or more of these solutions also help to get you back in the game as well. I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to stop by Dialed In DIY and checking out my video. If you enjoyed it, got something out of it, or it was just a good excuse to pass some time, I'd love it if you'd let me know by clicking that thumbs up below. I'd also really appreciate it if you'd subscribe while you're here, ring the bell for future notifications, and make sure to come on back in the future, because there will be plenty more Dialed In DIY to come.